Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I feel like I haven't filmed a psychology career video thing in a while, and I know that's what most of you are here for, so I thought I would make one finally. I get a lot of emails asking what my main tips are for the interviews, and people just saying like, help me, I've got an interview in a couple of days time and I just really need some advice. I think sometimes you just need like general interview advice, you know, we don't get taught it at school and it's hard to know what you're going into. So I'm hoping that today I can give you some tips. Some of them are more important than others. I just think having some direction before going into an interview is quite comforting. Leave us a comment down below. Please like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you want more content like this. So let's get into the video. So before the interview, it's really important to prepare. When I first started to get interviews, I would write massive, and I mean massive, lists of questions that I kind of anticipate I would be asked. And I kid you not, in all 3 interviews where I did that, none of those questions were asked. And I prepared about 50 questions for each interview and none of them came up. So the way that I would recommend preparing now is, rather than writing down a list of questions and answers to memorize, I would just reflect, and you're going to hear me use this word so much in this video, but just reflect on the past experiences that you've had in previous jobs and how that may impact your working for the role that you're interviewing for. And so how I did this is I would read through the person specification and think of a situation where I can show that I've got that skill that they're listing. And then at least by doing that and kind of memorizing those experiences, that's a better way to prepare, because that's really what they want. They want you to be able to identify a situation, reflect on it, and then say how it's going to impact your working in their service. So I think that is the best way to prepare. But also another thing that I always did was look up the values of the trust that I'm applying for. So the NHS is split up into various trusts, which basically just means like different localities and areas. Each of those trusts have values which they are aiming to achieve in all their work. So for the Essex Trust that I work at, it's open, compassionate and empowering. And so I researched obviously what the values were and kind of thought about how important those values are in my life and how my working can show that I've got those qualities, which are obviously really important. And they might not ask you a question completely to do with their values, with their trust values, but I would try and like drop them in here and there if you can, because it shows that you're interested in their specific trust and also that you've done your research. Like, it's good to show that you're interested in a job because they know that you're passionate about it and their service. Also, during this preparation phase, I would look into the service users that I'd be working with and any conditions that are very common within that group. For my interview for the stroke psychology service, obviously I looked into stroke and the kind of psychological impact that can have on a person, and that would go into my preparation, and I would learn those points so that I would have a better understanding of the service as a whole. Now, when I did my interviews, I didn't have any questions about like, oh, what is a stroke? How do people get strokes? None of that, but it just is good to have that as like a underlying knowledge that fuels all of your answers. So once I've done that preparation stage, I would then say practice is key. And I know I said not to write down questions and answers, but get people in your house, your family members, your friends, literally anyone and everyone, to just ask you questions that they think might come up. And it's not about practicing the answers, but rather practicing how you answer questions and also being able to control that interview anxiety where you're going to be asked questions that you don't know the answers to some of the time. So being able to control that anxiety and trying to formulate the best answer possible is really important. And I also think being able to answer questions about yourself and getting comfortable with that is also really important. Us as humans, we hate talking about ourselves. So, well, actually, that's not true. We like to talk about ourselves, but I think we feel quite awkward about talking about our skills and the positive things about ourselves. So it's good to get comfortable with that as well by doing the practice with people in your home. Now I've got some more novel tips for before the interview day. So for a lot of AP jobs, you need to bring paperwork along. So I think it's normally like your graduation certificate and then maybe a DBS. And I would just say prepare that before the day, because you don't want to be scurrying around your house trying to find a photocopy of your degree or whatever. So just have it all ready to go like a week before your interview. It just saves you the stress. Another tip would be to prepare your outfit before the interview day. So for me, what I wear really influences how I feel. I feel way more confident when I'm wearing a nice outfit, and in the same way I feel more ready for an interview if I'm wearing smart clothes. For the interviews I wore the same outfit for everyone because obviously they're all different people and it's just a lot easier for me. I just have a go-to interview outfit. I normally wear a long sleeve shirt dress and it's muted colours. I wouldn't go for anything too bright, but then again some people say wear something that people are going to be able to remember you by. But for me, I prefer muted colours. I'm more comfortable in them, and I think that's the main thing for interviews, is to feel smart, look presentable, but be comfortable in what you're wearing. You don't want to be sat there like pulling your sleeves up or whatever, messing around with that. So just wear something that you feel comfortable and confident in. And when it comes to choosing what you're going to wear, I would say it's better to be overdressed than underdressed. You don't want to be turning up being the most casual person there. But there's no need to wear like high-heeled pumps or anything. It's not a corporate office job, but you do have to wear smart wear. Also be modest with what you're wearing. Don't show off any cleavage or don't wear strappy things, you know. Unfortunately, it is a really old-fashioned way of thinking, but you do have to adhere to the dress code policies. Now, when I was preparing for this interview, I wrote down this point and then realised that now a lot of the interviews are probably going to be done online. But if not, then check Google Maps for the location of your interview. It seems really simple, but you don't want to be getting lost on the day. And also check out parking, because a lot of NHS sites you have to pay for parking, unfortunately. It's just one less thing to worry about on the day. But obviously now, with everything going on, a lot of them are being done online. So similarly, if it is a video call, make sure that you have good internet, you have a laptop available, you have a camera, you have a microphone that works. Also make sure that you've got a location for you to do your interview in, make sure it's quiet, all of that. Just double check that on the day you've got that kind of practicality thing sorted. So on the day you've woken up, you're feeling good, you're feeling a little bit nervous, but today is the day you're going to do your interview, which means one step closer to getting that job. Now, what I would normally do on the day is be quite chill. I wouldn't do anything very intense. I don't memorize things. I wouldn't try to learn anything new, but I do read through my notes that I made during the preparation phase about the service users and the conditions that are common within that group. And I would also read through the person specification again and think about those experiences that I highlighted before. For example, if I'm reading through the person specification and it says the person needs to have the ability to interact with people with mental health problems, then I would think about a time when I have shown that I'm able to interact with people with mental health problems, and I would then obviously think about how that went and be reflective and think about how that would change my work for the future within their service. So when you're in the interview room, obviously you're going to be really nervous, and normally it's a panel, so that does kind of make things even more scary, but you're going to be fine. And before you go in, just take deep breaths, like actually take some deep breaths. Just breathing through your nose nicely, like you're smelling a flower, and then let it go like you're blowing out a candle. And if you just go to the toilet beforehand and do a couple of those, it will make you feel so much better. But now you're in the interview room and you can't be sitting there going but what you can do is, before you answer each question, just pause and just take a small breath in and just ready yourself to give a really good answer. There's no need to rush into it. This is not a timed exercise by any means, so just really take a breath. They say, tell us a bit about yourself. So, I did this, I'm sick, give me the job. Taking that little pause will do so much difference, because you're allowing yourself time to think, and they want that in a psychologist. They want to know that you are going to think before you do things. And following on from that, another tip would be, don't be scared to ask them to repeat the question or to ask them for a moment to think. That's fine. You are human. You're allowed to mishear things. You're allowed to need a bit more time to formulate an answer. So in my last interview where I got my job, I asked them to repeat the question for probably about 2 or 3 of the questions they asked me, because they asked like so many questions within one. It was like a 3-part question, so I can't hold all that information. So what I did was I kind of said my first answer and then said, oh sorry, I've forgotten the second part, could you repeat it please? I just want to make sure I'm not waffling on. And then they'd repeat it and then I could stay on track. They don't want to hear you waffling on about something they didn't ask you about just because you've forgotten about what they asked you. So just ask them to repeat it and just ask them for some time to think. It shows that you are reflective, which they love. So would definitely recommend doing that. A massive tip, which I think helps in any interview situation, is to reframe the whole scenario as a conversation rather than a Q&A. When you do that, you allow yourself to be on the same level as them, not as inferior to them. I don't know if this is just something that I kind of feel when I go into an interview, but I always feel like this like timid little girl who's answering up to these big bosses, but that is not the case. Like, you need to see them eye to eye and be on the level where you're intellectual and you can have these conversations with them about their service. And so I think by framing it in that way as a conversation, it makes you feel a lot calmer. And I think the key to a really successful interview is honestly keeping your cool. If you've gotten to the interview phase, you probably have the knowledge and the skill set to get the job and do the job properly. So just try and stay calm. And my final tip, but the most important one of them all, and you've heard me say it tons and tons before. Actually, fun game. Type in the comments now if you know what I'm going to say. Okay, you done? Right. Be reflective. In all of your answers, be reflective. So I made a whole video on how to be reflective, so go watch that, I'll link it below. I'd say that is the key to getting an assistant psychologist job. Well, I know for sure that one of the interviews, the answers were scored out of 3, and so I'm unsure what mark 1 and 2 were for, but the third and final mark you got for being reflective, and that's kind of where I lost all my marks for during that interview. I got all the 1 and 2s, but I didn't get the 3rd mark, which is really annoying. So yeah, just be reflective in every answer and hopefully that should do it. Right, I can see my battery is running low now, so that's going to be it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and like I said at the beginning, please like this video if you like it and subscribe for more content like this. If you have any great tips, then leave them down below, and until next time guys, I'll see you later.